Hi, you're watching Hindustan Times in Focus, and I'm Aditi Prasad. In Focus today is the disengagement process, which is on at the LAC. 9 months of intense standoff, eyeball to eyeball confrontation between the Indian Army and the PLA, a seemingly unending deadlock. And poof, suddenly one day we hear about the disengagement process and how it's begun, and then China moving back its troops and its tanks and artillery at very rapid pace. Even as we speak, Chinese tanks and artillery are being withdrawn from the Penang region. To understand the situation more, I have with me Executive Editor Shishir Gupta, Hindustan Times Executive Editor, who has been closely tracking the Indo-China standoff right from day one. Shishir, 9 months of eyeball to eyeball confrontation and a seemingly belligerent Beijing unwilling to back off. What changed? And that China agreed to move from the front lines, and why now?
Uh, Actually, there are two parts to this question. One is that why did it first actually go into an aggression mode that happened in May 2020? And why did it suddenly decide to disengage? Now, the point is when we come to the disengagement, which has started on February 10th, what has happened is that you see that the Chinese have actually disengaged at a much faster pace than that was expected. For instance, if I were to tell you that till February 14, that already moved out to 20 tanks from the southern banks of the Pangong, which is a saltwater lake, and they had moved out tanks from finger 4 to finger 8, towards finger 8, which is a mountainous spur on the north banks of Pangong. Now,
Right.
the million-dollar question is, why did you do this? Why not? Why didn't it happen before? Now, if you were to understand this, there are a couple of things in this. One is that the ninth round of the military dialogue was held on January 24th, 4 days after US President Joe Biden was sworn in. Now, my understanding to this purpose is that they expected that there would be certain relief by the new Democrat administration after the powwow with former President Donald Trump. But what happened was something to the contrary. Joe Biden also decided to go for the freedom of navigation operations in South China Sea. One must
Mhm.
understand that no less than three elements of three carrier strike groups are currently operating in South China Sea, putting pressure on Taiwan, putting pressure on China. Now, what has happened is that you have USS carrier group Ronald Reagan, you have carrier group Nimitz, you have carrier group Theodore Roosevelt. Now, these are nuclear powered carriers, and they carry a humongous punch. So the pressure did not diminish from that area, first of all. Second, they thought that initially that the Narendra Modi government will buckle down and they would not be able to stand the winter on East Ladakh. Now, people who have an idea about this East Ladakh winter, it goes like this: that temperatures can go up to minus 50 degrees below, and the wind chill factor is amazingly high, and it's a dry climate, and things are not the best of things. I mean, it's easier to operate in Siachen than to operate in this area. So they thought that actually the Indians would not be able to handle it, but the Indian army stood up to it. It's not that they did not have problems; they did have problems, but they stood up to it.
Right.
So that was the second part. Third thing was that if you look at these two dimensions, then you come to the third dimension. What was the political cost and the economic cost of the deployment? Now, to put it very clearly, in 2019, what was the trade figure with China has now dramatically reduced by 50%. In 2019, if you're talking about $81 billion worth of trade, right now we're talking about $61 billion worth of trade. The Indian imports have not come down, but the Indian exports haven't come down, but the Chinese imports have. So you're
Right.
looking at a figure of $61 billion. So that was another huge hit. And the lastly, but the most important thing was the world had come to realize that the Xi Jinping regime could not be trusted, because they were not only going after India on East Ladakh, they were going after Japan. On Senkaku Islands, they were going after Australia on trade,
Australia.
and so it was basically a bully show which was being run. So somewhere down the line, when they realized that things were not working, the pragmatic approach was to disengage.
Using the pragmatic approach for the Chinese was to disengage, and you pointed out a series of reasons, including the forcefulness and the Modi government's intent being visible that they're not going to back down. A, B, the economic pressure that they put on China, that India put on China. B, C, you also talked about the horizontal pressures, from Quad, from the United States and everywhere else, and the world community realizing that China is bullying. All fair well, all very well. Would critics, however, say, and I'm talking about critics sitting within India, that India loses more than it gains from this engagement, because it's a 10-kilometer stretch between finger 3 and finger 8. If we talk about Pangong so specifically, Indian Army, they say, has patrolled this area since 1962, but now we cannot even enter the zone. China has been granted the right to patrol till finger 4. That means effectively the LAC shifted from finger 8 to finger 4. That's their rationale. What is your take on that?
You see, people who speak like this are actually talking the political language of it. I do not. I can very clearly say that these people have little understanding as to what they're talking about and what was the ground situation. What does the disengagement say? The disengagement agreement that has been signed in black and white says that the Indians will move to the Dhansing Thapa post, which is on finger 3.
Right.
The Chinese will move east of finger 8, which is the Shijab complex. Now, people who know about the 1962 war should understand that the war that India was evicted out of Shijab complex in 1962. The person who fought was Lieutenant Colonel Dhan Singh Thapa, who subsequently was taken a prisoner. Now, come closer to the current millennium. What had happened was, and that's a fact, what the truth is that you were on finger 3 at the Dhan Singh Thapa post. You were trying to patrol till finger 8, but
Right.
you would be intercepted around fingers 5 or finger 6 and told to go back or else have a face-off. The Chinese were trying desperately to come from finger 8 to finger 4. You would intercept them also, and they would not make it to finger 4.
Right.
So anybody who says that India is lost is talking sheer political rhetoric, nothing else than that.
Okay, so
Second
that's clearly, yeah.
Second thing, what people do not understand is that what India has done on August 29, 30th. On August 29, 30th, Indian troops and the Special Frontier Forces occupied the Kailash Ridge area, which overlooks Pangur So, which threatens the Moldu garrison of the PLA. It was one big move, and when history will be written, this will be one of the finest chapters. Let me say that, because the Chinese really came at us, but we managed. And we managed because of very strong military leadership and a very strong political leadership.
Right. So the preemptive occupying of several commanding heights, the late August incident that you're talking about, in the south bank of the Pangong So, yeah.
So that gave us the leverage, because once you see, the point is that the Chinese 1959 line runs through finger 4. Our perception runs through finger 8. But if you go down, our perception line is on the Kailash ranges. So what we did was, we contested the finger 4 line, but we occupied a perception line. on south banks of Pangong. So the
Right.
entire exercise was nullified.
You
And
talked about, yeah, please continue.
anybody who talks about the Indian army sort of losing it, I'm sorry, this is actually doing discredit to people like Colonel Santosh Babu, who fought very valiantly at Galwan, who
Right.
did not let things go. So anybody who says that India is lost does not know what he's talking about, because what has happened right now, and I'm still keeping my fingers crossed because it's still not closed. Because after disengagement, there'll be de-escalation. After de-escalation, there'll be peace and tranquility, so on and so forth. I do not know what's going to happen after this, but till now, what has happened is humongous.
Right. It's humongous in a sense. I'm going to come to how humongous that is and the implications going forward for peace and tranquility on the border and to finally resolve the border dispute with China, which has been hanging fire for the last many decades. But first, I just want to dwell upon the Kailash range and what critics are saying about India, sort of coming, at the Kailash range, we were in a position of strength. The occupation did turn the tables, so to speak, in many ways, as far as how China viewed India's capability, and the withdrawal is being seen as a big concession from our side, almost akin to giving up our trump card. Would you agree with that?
I don't agree with that at all. Because if that is the case, then let's talk about Depsang 2013, when the previous government was there. The Chinese don't allow us to patrol in Depsang. Patrolling
Right.
point 10 to 13A is very difficult to patrol. So what happened over there? Who lost it over there? And by the way, when you say that you actually, you rolled back your advantage on the south banks, the Chinese also have rolled back their advantage on the north bank.
Right.
They were, after all, sitting on finger 4. Now he's gone back to the Shijab complex. And Shijab complex does not have that kind of wherewithal to keep that much of forces. He's already moving out of that place. See, give devil its due. It's not the point that that I'm saying the Chinese are actually saints and actually the PLA suddenly turned turtle. No, I am
Right.
saying it could be a tactical move. But the point in
Absolutely.
this is
There's got to
that
be a give for a take
what
to happen. Right.
you see, what was happening was that in all the rounds preceding the 9th round, they were talking in terms that why don't you move to finger 1 and I move to finger 8. Now to
Right.
get you have not changed your position. You never were on finger 4. You're on finger 3 on Dhan Singh Thapa post. Okay, he
Right.
was coming from finger 8. He had built a road to finger 4. What were you doing when the road was built?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's essentially, let me put it, because this question comes out, keeps on repeating. What were you
Yeah.
doing when the Aksai Chin road was built in 1950s?
Right.
What happened when you decided that actually the Chinese are not going to attack you in 1962? Who did that? It's all part of history. And anybody who has any problems in this must read what Dhan Singh Thapa did. Okay, he
Fair
won
enough.
Paramveer Chakra for that.
Right. Fair enough. Let me talk about, of course, I brought into focus some of what critics are saying to kind of make everyone understand exactly what actually is happening at the LSC. If the disengagement that has now begun at Pangong is completed without any hindrance, of course, a similar process is likely to take place at other areas along the LSC. Can India really trust China to honor the agreements? That's the big question that I want to put to you, Shishir. What's your assessment? You've been tracking India-China relations, and not just from the start of this conflict for decades. What, according to you, can India trust China to honor the agreements this time around, and why?
You see, the Chinese behavior has been such that you cannot trust what's going to happen, but you can always trust and verify. And the proof of the pudding lies in eating. Because the point is that they have to take certain steps. For instance, first the Pangong disengagement has to complete, which should be
Right.
completed by February 19th. That is 10 days from the day it started. After which,
Right.
in 48 hours, there will be a meeting, and then they will start focusing on Gogra and hot springs, which are near Konkala, which is the Konka Pass.
Hmm.
Now, these two places, I don't think so much of a difficulty is there to disengage from that area. But once this is completed and once Depsang is completed, which is a very, very significant one, because that actually, puts pressure on the Daulat Beg Oldie Post of India in near Karakoram Pass. Once this happens, they have to actually prove that they can be trusted. The factor lies in that. They have to prove themselves. They have to actually disengage from this place. I am told that they have actually taken a step back in Nakula. I am
Mhm.
told that there is you can actually observe certain movement of troops getting less aggressive across Arunachal. So there are these straws in the wind, but does the big picture complete? I cannot say that, because let it happen first. But the
Right.
fact remains is that within 4 days he moved 220 tanks out. He got
Yeah.
his
That
transporter, he got everything
speed
out.
is speed is
And
mind-boggling.
and understand one thing. And understand one thing. He didn't run away because he was afraid of you. And he had he has had that capacity to stay there put for a long time. So the calculus, there was a different political calculus working at this time. And one of the major reasons why he decided to withdraw was because of the decisive nature of this present regime.
Right. Some analysts believe that this engagement may actually be the first step to lasting peace as far as the border is concerned, and as far as China is concerned. Because if the disengagement process goes as planned, we are actually looking at a de facto border belt, which will sort of come into being between the two countries in the Himalayas, with actually a buffer zone in between where nobody's allowed to go. What's your view on that?
I don't think so. That is the truth part of it. First of all, that will lead to lasting peace? I don't think so, because in 2020 he decided to impose a line which was drawn in 1959. So he comes back to you after 60 years with the same line. So I don't
Yeah.
think so it's going to lead to a lasting peace. Please,
So
first of all,
basically, you can't trust them. Yeah.
no, the point is that, again, as I said, proof of the pudding lies in eating. I mean, you have to show that you can be trusted. But right now it is
Right.
not like that. And I don't know. Can you repeat the other one? What you were saying about the other part?
That there is actually a de facto border belt which might come into being. Some analysts are saying this, that there might be the manner in which this disengagement process is going to actually happen. We've never had any sort of uh, defined border with China.
Aditi, people need to understand what is LAC first. LAC is line of actual control. It's our perception against his perception. There is no border. Please, there is no border.
Yeah, but now
All
they've
we
decided that they're not going to patrol between finger 3 and finger 8 on
Not at
either
all.
side.
No, I don't think so. Even that is the case. First of all, let me explain what the border is. In in By the turn of the century, they exchanged maps in the central sector,
Uh,
where we know exactly where is he and where is our military. So we are
right.
clear on which side are they. But again, that is not the border. The
Yeah,
border will be
correct.
decided by the special representatives after due political consultation. They refused to exchange the border maps, the maps on the western sector. That which was, I
Right.
think, if I'm not mistaken, uh, maybe July 14, 2002, something like that. But when we saw those things, we found there were 14 areas of dispute. So again, there is no border on the western sector. Similarly, there is no border on the eastern sector, because he does not recognize that line, the McMahon line. So, it's just so simple to say that actually there is a border. There is no border over there.
Right.
What you have is that if you know his position and you know your position, then you are clear that you are not going to actually violate my perception and I do not violate your perception. That's how the face-offs take place. Now, as
Hmm.
far as patrolling goes, there is no such thing as a buffer zone. That again is a misnomer. What will happen is what has happened in Galwan. Once both sides have gone back to their bases, then they will decide when the temperatures are down, when the disengagement has taken place, then they will decide that how to patrol. I will patrol towards my perceived line, you will patrol towards your perceived line, but we will ensure that we don't clash. But that does
Okay.
not mean that area will be a demilitarized zone. No, it is not. Okay. So
So you
this,
don't see, yeah, you don't see any what I'm hearing you say is that while this disengagement process may have started right now, let's not count our chickens. Let's not trust China. It's not going to be it's not going to be all hunky dory from here on. This is just the first step.
not at all, because the point in this is you must understand where am I coming from. 60 years down, he again imposes the 1959 line. Then
Right.
what he does is that you have a meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping. Two meetings, Wuhan summit, and you have the Chennai Connect. After that,
Right.
he does Pangong Lake on you. So the point is, he can't be trusted. You will have to deal with him on a daily basis and ensure that he honors the written agreements. Ensure. But the last time he violated the two agreements, 1993, 1996 agreements.
So it's
So
always
if
one step
tomorrow,
forward and two steps backwards, is it?
absolutely. So if
Right.
tomorrow he turns back and he says, sorry, I didn't do this, then what will you
Hmm.
do?
Right. So tread carefully. Do not trust China, is what I'm hearing you say. Would it be fair to say, Shishir, that a key takeaway from this entire episode, this 9.5 month long saga, which is, coming hopefully towards its end now, and I say hopefully again, given the fact that you've talked about not trusting China, for us as a nation, the big takeaway is that. The confidence that we've now got in dealing with China. Would you consider that as the big takeaway from this entire episode?
No, no. But India has come out win-win in this. There's no
Yeah,
question about it. And the Indian military has really shown its might. There's no question about it again. But the point is that I would rather trust and verify. That's the line that actually with Chinese should always be that you have to watch them on a daily basis as to what they do, and then decide what your reaction or what your counter strategy is
right.
going to be.
All right. Thank you, Shishir. I think that must have been very
Thank you.
insightful for all our viewers, for them to understand really what's happening at the LAC, even as this disengagement process continues. The focus, of course, now should be to look towards the future. Semantics have little relevance that, the opposition is saying what it is saying, and critics are saying what they are saying, and the government, of course, is, saying that, it's a win-win situation for all. But the fact is that status quo ante has been restored, and both sides have agreed to fall back to their positions prior to April, May 2020, and not patrol the areas for now. But as Shishir says, verify and observe and see what China is doing, and then actually believe what they. When you see them doing something, that's when seeing is believing as far as China is concerned. Thank you so much, Risha, for joining us. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
viewers, for watching this broadcast. We'll keep coming back to you with more. Keep watching HindustanTimes.com.
Okay.